why use live graphics in TV or broadcasting? It's a big question.
Why do we have graphics on video? There are multiple reasons.
I want to get into the specific types of graphics. So there's overlays, there's channel branding, and then there's AR, XR, MR.
Snipes or sweeps or bumpers, title sequences. You can divide these concepts into different kinds of buckets. This podcast will probably be 7 hours long, so we'll see.
Okay, well, welcome back everyone to episode number 2 of Live Graphics for All. I'm Naoyuki Matsumoto, and here's you.
Yeah, here's me. So yeah, I'm Tuomo, the founder of SPX Graphics. Nice to be back and to have a little chat.
Yeah, it took a little bit from the first episode, but we are back, and we will be back regularly. So stay tuned.
Let's not make any promises.
No,
let's try.
Make the promise.
Yeah. Let's keep the promise. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so today our title of this episode is called All About Broadcast Graphics. And in episode number 1, we talked more generally about what live graphics are. But today we'll get into the specifics of broadcasting. So live graphics in the context of broadcast and TV. Right. So first we want to get into why use live graphics in TV or broadcasting? So it's a big question. Maybe Tuomo can break that down into.
Yeah, I can try. Well, first of all, the title of our episode means that this podcast will probably be 7 hours long. So we'll see.
We're trying to keep it under 1, but
let's try. But anyway, so why do we have graphics on video? Well, there are multiple reasons. Historical thing, I think first place wherever people saw graphics over a video, basically, or during a video presentation was black and white film.
Right.
Mute film. You had the guy playing piano in the cinema, and between the scenes you would have this card displaying text, like explaining what's going on in the video. Because there was no voiceover, there was no sound, so you had to convey ideas somehow, and that was one way to use graphics there. So that's way before television. But I think that's just a nice way to think about it. Like that's one way to do graphics, and of course, like title sequences are kind of graphics. But other than those, there are multiple reasons, like just to explain something, to do a bit of storytelling. So you can have some kind of explanation where we are. We can use maps or locators, information where we are, White House, Washington, D.C., and stuff like that. So that is
just like that bug on the corner of your screen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like that. So it just gives a little bit of context where we are and what we are doing and what year is it or something like that. So it just moves the story forward.
Right. And it's a visual aid to whatever people are talking about.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it can shrink time because you don't need to explain everything in words. You can just show an item using graphics and people will understand instantly what we are talking about. So that helps. Then obviously once you do any design on screen, you will need to go through some design choices. So like what kind of colors am I going to use? What kind of a font am I going to use? And when you make a choice, you are actually doing branding work. So a lot of on-screen graphics are there to differentiate the content from a competing piece of content. So it's branding.
Right. Yeah, when you switch around on TV and different channels, they'll have different, styles and colors and everything. Every graphic that you see on screen kind of matches its brand, and that has to be made designed
Yes.
to match their brand. Yeah.
Yes. So all of those are, design choices of some sort.
Right.
And yeah, and quite useful actually when you are flipping through channels quickly. So you can, from the bug or dog or logo in the corner, you can see which channel this is. And yeah, and of course, information is something which is used a lot in sports and news, in live situations where you don't have a scripted content, but everything happens as we are watching it. So somebody is controlling the graphics using branded elements and trying to communicate something what is going on, like how fast is the car going, like who did the score, stuff like that. So those are reasons why to use graphics. Actually, I was just in a hockey match, kind of a kids hockey match, and I was there in the arena physically on site myself, and I was watching the game. But I knew that they were also streaming the match, so I wanted to go to the streaming platform to check out the content, like how do they do the stream. And I was watching part of the game there on site, and then I left home and I tuned back in there with my big screen TV, and it was quite difficult to follow who was doing and what, and who was winning and how much was their time left in the match, because they didn't have any graphics. So that was
on their streams.
Yeah, exactly, on the stream. Yeah.
I have a funny story. Is I was watching a hockey game at a bar, right? And they had it on the projector.
Right.
But there were many people sitting down in the bar, so they had to kind of adjust it a little higher than you would, so people's heads don't like block the bottom of the screen. But that actually covered the scoreboard on the top. And you don't, like, the thing about live graphics, you don't realize it until it's gone, because we were all like trying to find the score and the time on the top. So yeah, when it's gone, you'll notice.
Exactly. It's one of those things that, like, you don't pay attention unless you happen to be a professional, of course. But like a lot of people, they don't really understand. Like, if you go there and ask, like, what kind of graphics did you saw on that show? People are like, I don't know. I don't remember anything. There was an ad about some, drink.
Yeah.
But
I think if you're not paying attention, you're not really sure which part of the visual, like, graphic is live and which part is like a video or like something that's like pre-rendered.
Yes,
maybe that's a technical term, but
it is a technical term. But that's actually, now that you mention it, it's one of those things which is extremely important, like differentiation between in broadcast, like when you are watching a show, you are most likely seeing a divide between live graphics and pre-rendered graphics, and the workflow, how these are being produced and played out, is completely different. Like a lot of let's say on YouTube, a lot of stuff is edited together. So it's been recorded, and then it goes through a post production process, and all the graphics are being laid out onto the video, in non-real time environment. You have time to tweak it and change it and move it and do all kinds of stuff to your graphic elements in post-production.
Right.
And that's why the practices and tools even are completely different comparing to live graphics that we like spend our days worrying about. And these workflows are quite different. Like, if you think about it, like if there's a long, super long name, and if you're doing a post-production, you can easily like put it to multiple lines. You can tweak the font size and move it a little bit. Or like in title sequences, quite often you can see that there are part of the graphics are white text on black background, or vice versa. You have black text on white or pale backgrounds, because it's very easy to do those design choices while you are editing it in a non-real time environment. So you can move those around. You can try out things and make changes. But if those title sequence, those graphics would be overlaid in real time during playout, you couldn't really do those same design decisions.
Yeah.
So the process is completely different, and it's very useful to start thinking about graphics that way. Like which parts can be or are better to be done as a pre-rendered element. Title sequences often are, and live graphics is something that you will need to rely on when you cannot script the content completely beforehand.
Which is a lot of content on TV and broadcast.
Oh yeah.
News, sports.
Yes.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
Game shows.
Yes. Live big shows which are broadcast live, all of them fall into that category. Like documentaries, not so much, because documentaries are basically movies.
I mean, I haven't seen a live documentary, but
yeah,
if
exactly.
there is such a thing.
Yeah, I don't know even. maybe there's not. Like, or you could argue that sports is live documentary, but that's a different story.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
But in live scenarios, there are a bunch of things what you can use or utilize to convey some ideas. Like we already mentioned the logo, so you might have your station logo there, or if it's the program that will have its own kind of a program brand, it might have a kind of a corner bug in there that might also carry additional information, and that's why some people call those logos docs, D-O-G. So
actually, yeah.
So
actually, I want to get into like the specific types of graphics. So now you already mentioned like the bug or dogs.
Yeah,
it's a funny name. Like for someone that's like hearing that for the first time, they'll be like, a bug, a dog.
Yeah,
it's in a logo. But I want to kind of like try to categorize some of these like graphics that we're talking about, like live graphics specifically.
Yeah.
So we kind of like try to categorize in 3 big groups. So there's overlays, there's channel branding, and then there's AR, XR, MR.
Right.
Is that like a fair divide?
Well, that's one. That's one. There are like you can divide these concepts into different kinds of buckets using different criteria, but this is a completely valid way of categorizing them. Like overlays, people are quite often talking about overlays, really, and overlay usually means something which is live, and so there is a person triggering graphics as it happens. so like in sports, let's say somebody scores, so the graphics operator will need to execute some kind of a process which will end up drawing some kind of animation on screen. So this is one kind of an overlay, and overlays you really cannot control on what kind of a video it is going to be appearing on. So that's why the design quite often it takes this into an account. Like there's some kind of a shadow or a border or a placeholder or a container where that content is being shown, because overlays, you really don't know, is it going to be shown on a dark image or a white image, and it will need to work on
like
both.
What's going to be behind it.
Yeah, exactly. You have no clue.
Yeah.
So because you don't know what, because it happens live, so you cannot really control it. So you will need to design those with that in mind.
Right.
So that's one.
Yeah. Well, let's go into some of these.
Yeah.
I think like the most commonly heard type of a overlay is a lower third.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys are watching the video, you'll see that there's like graphics triggering like right now on Tuomo's screen. That's our graphic operator doing all these live.
Yes. So no post-processing here going on. We are doing live overlays.
Yep. Wait. So let's start with the lower third. So
Right.
if you can show our name tags.
Yeah.
That's an example of a lower third.
Yeah.
And kind of like the name is like telling of what it is.
Yes.
It's a overlay graphic that should cover the lower third of a screen, right? Like
There you
that's
go.
why it's named that.
That's what
There
it
you
is. And it really depends on the use case, like what the content in your lower third really is. Because you might have a simple, just a name or a locator, like a place or a name of the company or something like that. It could be super simple. But at the same time, a lower third can be an extremely complicated machine. Like you can see those on news networks. So they have a bunch of individual items going on in that area of a lower third. So if you divide the screen into 3 parts, the lower part usually contains this kind of information. It might have these news tickers, like we are scrolling something here. Now we have 2 of them. So there might be a multiple of these things going on at the same time. And there might be names of hosts and guests, and there might be weather information, score, sport results, information about upcoming shows. There's a lot of different kinds of things that you can put into your lower third, but that's a kind of an umbrella term, meaning stuff which are overlays at the bottom of the screen.
And what is the reason why it has to be, lower third? Like, is there any technical reasons why like we chose to put everything on the lower third? Like, couldn't it be, top third? But I guess it's an aesthetic choice.
It is. It really is.
It doesn't cover.
Yeah. It's most I think convenient way of using graphics, because we like to show these image sizes, like how are we presented on a video frame. Like this is a frame. Let me try. So sides, up, down. Usually it is being divided into 3 parts. And people's faces. Actually, we do have a kind of a nice setup here. So my face is on the third, and the microphone here is on the second third. So we can split this image into 3 like columns. The same thing applies like vertically, and our faces are usually in the upper half. So it just leaves this kind of an empty space underneath our faces, and we can put graphics in there. It's basically an aesthetic choice plus convenience.
Yeah. So lower third, I guess, is a little bit of a umbrella term, like you said.
Yes.
Because next I was gonna ask about tickers. Yeah. And Santeri, our graphic operator, he was already showing the tickers. Yeah. If you can play that again. Yeah. So tell me about tickers. Like, what are these things? Yeah. Like you see it when you're watching news. Yes. Often, but
and it depends like what kind of a ticker is being used. So there are basically two different. Well, there are 2 directions, obviously. So you can slide things on screen vertically or horizontally, and some people call these scrolls or crawls or tickers, and the motion in them can be divided in at least 2 categories. I like to think about them in either they are scrolling tickers or they are flipping tickers. These ones, actually we have both here on screen right now. So the upper one is a scrolling one.
And that to me looks like a stock market, like something you see in Wall Street,
Yes. And that's what it often is also. So it's a non-ending stream of information. So there's really no beginning or end. It's a constantly evolving content. A loop, yes. Yeah. Yes. And the values on screen might change as they are, scrolling here. It might, the value might change. So that's one. And the flipping one, the bottom one, actually, we can call this a flipping one because the text itself doesn't scroll. It just appears and stays there for a while and then it changes. So that can be called a flipping ticker. And the reason why we have these is that in the olden times, these were basically paper rolls that were actually like physically rolled. So those were pre-made, like
Right.
end credits usually were done that way. So you had a long roll of paper, and you would actually scroll
And this
it.
is film, right?
Yeah, film.
You're shooting the scroll moving.
Correct, and the same was actually used on TV as well, because before there were graphics systems being able to do animated graphics, they actually shot those, using a camera, and there was actually a person rolling a piece of paper in front of the lens. Yeah.
If you just saw the GIF that came on the screen, did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
You
Yeah,
missed
yeah,
that?
yeah.
That's the Star Wars one.
Yes.
I don't know if that was also manually done, but
I don't even know how that was originally done in the 70s.
I feel like I've heard that it's that they use like
yeah,
it's an analog thing, but
yeah, absolutely, it was an analog thing. Absolutely, it was.
oh yeah,
But how really? I don't know.
we'll have to find out.
Somebody will tell us.
Right. Okay. Well, that's tickers.
Yeah.
Okay, one more thing this is like a side question. If Sampo, can you bring the ticker back on? Any of them? Like I've noticed that these graphics leave a little bit of space under the most bottom graphic, so you can see a little bit of the video behind it on the bottom.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why like broadcast graphics does that? Like why isn't it touching the bottom if it's lower third?
Yeah. So yes, there is, and the reason the thing is called a safe area. So in TV graphics, all the borders basically, this has really changed. So nowadays it doesn't really matter that much, because we are often watching our content, video content, from a device which doesn't even need to be full screen. So it might be a video player within a web page. So you have basically the web page around it, and the video is embedded onto that page. That's one way of consuming video, right?
Like if you're watching a video like portrait mode on your phone, then it's like a side.
Exactly. So it might be embedded onto a website or some kind of a user interface. But the traditional like TV broadcast graphic was traditionally shown on television, a physical device, and that physical device was manufactured by one of the manufacturers, and they used these CRT cathode ray tubes, these old-fashioned, very heavy physical pieces of glass, and that glass was surrounded by a wooden or plastic box, right? And some manufacturers covered more of that glass than others, and there was really no standard around it. Like in the industry, people are using percentages to describe this safe area, because if you think about it, like if we put a text like at the very, very bottom of the screen, that it basically touches the edge of the image. And when you wrap that image into a wooden or plastic, cover, it might cover all of it, some of it, or half of it. So the way to work around it was just to move it off from the bottom, because you couldn't be sure if it would actually be shown on screen or being covered by that, border. And people are describing these using a couple of terms. There's title safe and action safe, and these are just words meaning that action safe is something like you should have your character or your subject in the frame within this action zone. So if there was a person at the edge of the frame, you would like to lay out that composition in a way that their eyeball wouldn't be cut in half, so it would sit on the edge of the frame, so you would move it inside a little bit. And title safe meant that if there's any graphics on screen, those should always fit into the inner safe area, around, let's say, 6 to 10%, empty kind of a space around your graphics. So that's usually why it's done like that. When we stopped using basically the CRT TVs and moved to flat screens, that safe area requirement has been shrinking all the time, but still there are reasons in broadcast why to keep that in mind. So you don't want your titles really to touch the borders.
But mostly it's a traditional thing that's been done, so it's like been there.
Yeah.
Interesting little tidbit about
right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I think we can move on to the other bigger category from overlays, channel branding. So okay, let's start with one that we already mentioned, which is a bug, or you called it a dog, right?
Yes.
So that's basically just the channel logo.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. So it's an identifier, and depending on the country, some countries they have that bug there all the time. Like no matter what the content is coming, like even advertising, there still might be that bug over it. So it's basically what it is quite often it's just a semi-transparent image that just sits there. But in some regions, in some cultures, people like to do very animated, colorful, kind of big logos. So there are a lot of different stylistic choices there, but it's really about channel branding and like having an ownership of that channel.
Right. So you're kind of like watermarking the video, right?
There was some time ago when plasma TVs was a big thing.
Wait, I don't know what that is. Is that the same thing as the other one?
CRT? No. Plasma. It's a flat screen, but using a little bit outdated technology nowadays. But anyway, so they had this issue of burn in. So if you had something on screen sitting there for a while, it would really physically ruin the device.
right.
And
like it'll burn it in.
It will actually burn it in.
Screen.
So if you like on, let's say, gas stations or supermarkets or places like these which have the same channel on like all the time, and in some homes as well, like I have heard complaints from TV viewers that the channel logo has been burnt into their device. So when they flip a channel, still the logo is still like visible there in the corner because it has really burned in to the actual physical surface which is showing that image. So TV networks have come up with some quite clever ideas how to work around that issue. It's not that big of a deal anymore, but anyway, some channels they moved that logo ever so slightly. So you really if you were watching it, you couldn't really see that moving, but you could really, like if you record it and play it back faster, you can see it wiggling, back and forth.
Just so it's not like on the same
yes
all the time.
Yeah. Eventually, it will still burn in, but not as
Maybe you should try changing the channel once in a while.
That's true.
Like I think that's the easier way to
absolutely
avoid.
Yeah. Another of course obvious thing would be to just make it less pronounced, so increase its transparency or reducing its opacity. So. So that's one, and some places even they had animated logos because of it. So they might have a kind of a highlight running across it, or have a noise, over it. So it is just not a static image.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know how many people can talk about just the bug graphic for. I think we can go an hour on that.
Yeah, absolutely,
really,
absolutely.
If we wanted to,
Yeah,
but we should kind of keep it moving.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay, bumpers. That's another part of channel branding, right?
Yeah, and it is used. Well, there are different terms for these. Once again, so some people call them snipes or sweeps or bumpers, or even mini title sequences or mini titles, full screen titles.
Many names.
Yeah,
there's so many names.
Many names. But they quite often they mean pretty much the same thing. So it's an some kind of a transition, and usually it has a function. So, for instance, in sports, when you are going from real time to a slow mo, like a replay, yeah. So then you go there with a bumper. So it basically divides usual content to a slow-mo content and then a bumper to go back to real time. So it just gives this it makes it more like understandable what's going on in the video when you are using these bumpers to basically give the program structure and content. So it basically it's just a marker for the viewers. Obviously, it is designed super carefully. Like the duration of a sport bumper might be less than a second, but often you can see like helmets and hockey sticks and pucks and all kinds of logos, fire, light flashes, all kinds of things within these few frames of a bumper. And often it starts as a completely a transparent thing, then it does its thing, and then it goes away. So it basically gradually covers the image and gradually goes away. And there's a cut point somewhere in there, usually in the middle. Like if you have a 1 second, in the half a second mark, you have a frame or a couple of frames which is covering entirely the whole image.
Right.
And that acts as a cut point. So your A video and B video is going to be cut on that frame.
It's like a way to transition live between two sources or videos without showing that cut point. And also at the same time, you're putting your branding in between in that 1 second or less.
Yes, exactly.
Many times.
Yes. And the same thing applies, like, let's say, when you are going to a news show, often in the beginning of a news show, you have today's headlines. And you go quickly, like you're introducing the topics of today, and you have bumpers between them. So it might be kind of a subtle thing. It doesn't have to be as bombastic as in sports often, but it has some kind of a flash or dip to white, dip to black, or some kind of a logo animation quickly between these news headlines.
Interesting. Okay, moving on. Split screen or picture in PIP, picture in picture.
Yeah, so
is that part of channel branding?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially the split screen or squeeze back or DVE effect or however you want to call it. There's once again multiple names for these, but it's
actually we're right now. If you're watching the video, I think we are in a split screen. I think that will be done in post. So
yes.
But it should be like that.
Yeah. So DVE is one of the terms that people use to describe this thing, and basically what it means, it's a digital video effect. it's a
well, very very generic.
Yes, it is very generic, but that's what it means in broadcast, that you are somehow transforming your main video. So you are making it smaller, you are cropping it somehow, you're moving that on screen. So this whole idea is basically it utilizes multiple areas of the screen at the same time. So there's some kind of a reason why to do a split screen or a picture-in-picture or a squeeze back. In the news, what's
an example?
Yeah, example would be in the news. You might have your host in the studio transitioning to a reporter on site, And when they are having their little intro discussion, they are usually in a 2-up or a split screen. So you have those two people on screen at once, and then the reporter on site goes to full screen, and it might cut into an insert video or a camera feed. So that acts as a kind of a bridge between the studio and the on-site. So that's one clever way of doing it. Another use case for using squeezebacks or having multiple things on screen at once is at the end of a TV show. So quite often television networks, because in movies end credits might take several minutes to go through. And for television networks, especially commercial ones, it is a very valuable time. So they want to utilize that time for something, meaningful for them. So then what they might do is that they either squeeze the end credits just horizontally, just crushing the image smaller, making space to the side to show some kind of a promo content, or even a voiceover announcing the next program in the program flow, or something like that. Or it might get smaller, so the aspect ratio stays the same, but just physically grows smaller, leaving basically an L shape. So it's basically like a background image poking through there.
Right.
And you can use that space to communicate some kind of a thing, like what's coming up next, or a hashtag of a show, or sponsors, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. I think, do you know any other? Are there any other channel branding graphics, or do we cover kind of like the main ones?
Well, people are super creative, so there are no two channels alike. So there are a lot of different ideas and elements what they have come up with, like, channel idents are like mini movies, just emphasizing or building the brand of a channel or network. Then there are menus, like now, next, later is an element which is often used. So it's showing a list of items. So next program is program A, then after it we have a program B, and later in the evening we have a program C. So that's one of those items. So there's like no like a very defined set of graphics that the networks and channels will use. So they create their own combination of items which is relevant to them.
Right. So basically just any kind of graphic channels are using to brand themselves.
Yes.
As the name suggests.
That branding is absolutely a very big part of it, but navigation is another. So that they are trying to use every second to promote some interesting content for their reviewers, because they know that when you are showing a specific type of a show, you can pretty much guess that what kind of a shows those might like. A recommendation, basically, principle.
Right.
Like on the internet as well. So you're recommending similar content. So that's what you are using these channel branding elements to do as well. So it's just not branding, it's also navigation.
Interesting. Okay. So we covered now 2 of the big categories.
Yeah.
And the last remaining one we said is AR, XR, MR. And I'm sure everyone's heard of like VR, but in the context of broadcast graphics, like how does that play into this specific industry?
Yeah, so this is like the biggest differentiator from like with the other ones, is that AR, VR, whatever you want to call these elements, they require 2 things often. They require 3D objects, so you will need to have 3D like animations, assets, models, which are being played back in real time. So it's a real time 3D. That's the key term there. And another thing, what they often require, not always, but most of the times, they will require tracking. So you have a camera in your studio, and these AR elements or VR elements are used in shows like sports and news, especially elections nowadays. A lot of newsrooms are using AR, augmented reality graphics, to augment the story. So they might show a distribution of seats across parties in a parliament. That's one use of it. Or they might do like you might have your candidates like virtually standing there in the studio while your camera is moving. So that's the key part of it, or the key difficulty of it.
Right.
So
it's like placing the 3D asset, the live 3D asset, in the physical space.
Correct.
And you have to track it so it's not moving with the camera, but it knows the space and kind of remembers where it is as the camera moves.
Right, exactly.
Right?
So
something like that.
Yeah. So Santeri is playing a clip here which has these AR elements. When you have your goggles, like if you're at home and you have some kind of a
like Apple Vision,
or some other goggles which has this tracking capability in it with cameras, so it can place virtual 3D objects on your tables or on your walls, and as you are moving your head, it feels like those elements are part of your physical world. It feels
right.
super realistic, and it's technically very complicated to do, in a way which feels really real, because there are things like human vision is super fast, for instance. So our eyes can see like minor little movements, and if your virtual object doesn't stay in its place, like visually, it feels odd. And the same thing applies to broadcast production. So in these, let's say these, one example is in sports. You might have let's say a soccer field, football field, with some kind of a 3D object on it. And your camera is moving, and it feels like that 3D object, let's say a trophy or a logo, feels like it's physically there on the field. And if you think about it, it's actually pretty difficult, because the camera that is shooting the image is moving. The graphic, which is completely a fabrication of computer graphics, it will need to stay there while the camera is moving. It will need to appear as it is physically there, in the world. And the camera image, by nature, is curved, because there is a lens, there's all kinds of things, and if you put a flat 3D object over an image which is shot through a camera which has a curved image, it doesn't feel right, and it is going to slip and slide somehow there, over that surface, so it feels super artificial and cheap. So to be able to pull it off convincingly, it requires a lot of attention to detail, and the technology will need to work perfectly. So as your camera is moving, it will need to somehow communicate back to the 3D engine, which is creating that illusion of that 3D object sitting on that field. It will need to move its virtual camera at the very precisely the same way and speed, and easing, like all the subtle changes of the speed of the motion will need to be carried through the entire pipeline. And then these two images, the virtual image and the camera image, will need to be blended together to create that final result. And it's pretty complicated. And
yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. And and that's why there are specialized tools and specialists who are doing nothing but this.
Right. So it sounds like those, the first two, so like CGs or overlays and channel branding, and like this XR, AR stuff is just like almost totally different use cases and like obviously it's way more complex, need more like tools and specialists. Like it's like a almost two separate ideas.
Yeah, yes. They I feel exactly the same way. So there are multiple ways how to slice these things, but really the divide between 3D tracked graphics and other kinds of graphics, I think it's a clear distinction. Like it can be categorized into these two fields. Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to go into like the tool. You just mentioned tools to do these, but before we do, there's been so many, or like since I've been in the broadcast industry and hearing all these terminologies, there's so many. Like for one type of graphic, you were like, saying off like 5 or 6 names for them.
Yeah.
And I've noticed some that are like super like weird. So I want to like maybe clarify, go through some of the weird ones.
All right, let's try.
Explain. Yeah, let's try to explain why they're called that, because some of them make sense and some of them I don't know if they make sense. So the first one, we were talking about overlays, but also calling it CG.
Yeah.
Is that like I've heard of CG in different contexts before?
Yeah.
But in the broadcasting graphic context, it's a different thing, right?
Yes.
CG.
Yes. So people who don't know broadcast can often use CGI. That's a term that they might use.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Yes.
Before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Computer generated imagery. So that's what you see in your films. So some kind of a monster there. That's CGI. Yeah. But CG in broadcast has nothing to do with that. It's basically a character generator. So a device, a generator which generates characters. Yeah, letters, words, text.
Right.
So like I mentioned these scrolling end credits and such. Those were physical paper-based things, but character generator was a device which was a physical device. Like it looked like an old-fashioned computer, which was only there to generate text on screen. So it was a physical device which has a couple of fonts, if you can call those even fonts, but they're like collection of shapes that an operator can then type in and render out, and that would be your character generator, and that has become kind of a umbrella term for overlays. So people are calling them CGs.
So it kind of just like stuck the name.
Yeah.
Like it got shortened and CG.
Yeah, exactly. And here in Finland, actually, those things are called, in Finnish, they are called TGs. So TG, which means text generator. Because in Finland, Finnish language, that made more sense. And because of that, in Finland, these TGs are called tegu.
But tegu and CG in the US or something is the same thing.
Same thing. Yes.
Right. Translated.
Yep. And people are calling these things like so like Googling is a word, is a verb. And if people are searching for anything on the internet, they might use that term like they are Googling for stuff, even though they were probably not using Google. They might be using some kind of other tool for the job. But the same thing has its... we have a similar thing in broadcast as well. Like Americans, they quite often call these CGs chyrons. So Chiron, yeah. So they might just, like the director or the technical director might shout like, "Bring in the Chiron," or show the Chiron.
Yeah.
Who is doing the Chirons today? Because there was a manufacturer of these character generators called Chiron, and it still is. They are one of the big broadcast graphics companies still around. But that term has become like a broadcast specific term in the States, especially.
Right.
And the same thing in the UK. They are calling them Astons because there was a British character generator called Aston, and that name just stuck.
So bring in the Astons.
Exactly. Yes.
Bring in the Chirons. Bring in the
Yep.
Astons.
Yep.
Show me the CG.
Right.
Show me the Tegu
Yes.
in Finland.
Or even a font. Some people are calling them like, or any graphic, like it can be a picture, but they're still, because of this idea of character generation, it means text, meaning fonts. So some are calling graphics fonts.
But would you say fonts, even though it's not a text anymore? It's just like or does it always have to have a text in it?
No.
for
No. It can be any kind of
anything.
any kind of a graphic, which will just be called out. All right.
Just a term.
Yeah.
Just a term.
Yes. Bring in the font, even though it has nothing to do with font selection per se.
I say the industry worldwide should come together and just pick one. It's probably gonna simplify a lot of things.
Yeah.
Okay. How about super? I have here.
Yeah. Super is it's kind of a technical term to superimpose. So.
Okay.
So you're superimposing text over a video. So
is that a verb?
No.
So you won't say super that CG.
You could, I think. But that would sound weird.
It would sound so weird, so absurd for like, people walking by. They're like, "What?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Yeah.
What?"
Yeah. Okay. And when we're talking about supers and superimposing things, that implies that the image that you are superimposing over another image, it means that it's somehow transparent.
Okay.
And there are basically two different kinds of terms how people are describing this issue of transparency in broadcast production. They might call that keying. So there is an image that you key out certain parts of it by using a range of colors. And another term to describe this is alpha. So I don't know where that alpha name came from, but that's in images, computer-based images. There are often, and especially in video, we have three colors. RGB, red, green, and blue, which are channels. So there's red channel, then there's green channel, blue channel, and then there's fourth channel, which is called alpha channel, which just describes transparency. So black is transparent, white is solid.
I think people who are not familiar with like photography software and stuff can, like, you've seen the pictures where it's like a checkerboard, right? Like a chessboard looking. That kind of is representing the degree of alpha.
Yes.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So when you Google images and you can see this checkerboard.
Well,
exactly. Here we go. Here we go. So this is implying that this GIF is transparent, even though we can clearly see here that it's not.
I don't know. Our graphic operator is doing a group. He's having fun with this GIF live graphic. Even though this is not something you would see in broadcast.
No.
It's a live graphic. Template that's being.
Yeah. It's a fun one, nevertheless.
It's a fun one for sure. For sure. Maybe too fun sometimes.
Yeah, it can be distracting, as we have seen.
Okay. One of them that I'm curious if there is a reason why it's called that is a bug. So the logo that we see, that we talked about, a bug or a dog, does that have a?
I don't know where the bug name. I know in a computer sense I know where the bug term came about, but I don't know in broadcast why people are calling these logos bugs. I don't know what the reason for that is, but you in the UK, people are often calling them dogs, D-O-G. And that's a digital on-screen graphic.
Oh. Right. Of course, it's an acronym.
Sure.
I've noticed broadcasting industry loves acronym.
Yeah.
I guess every industry, but especially I've noticed.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Dog. Maybe bug is also an acronym.
Could be. Somebody will probably tell us.
Of course, yeah. In the comment section below, let us know. I have a guess though, is that it looks like a bug on the camera. It's always there, like a fly landed there.
Could be.
That's my guess.
I don't know. Yeah,
that's my guess.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Actually,
Okay.
when I was doing a broadcast design here in Finland some 15 years back, and we were introducing additional content next to bug. So we had the channel logo there, but we wanted to introduce more like dynamic things in there, like what show is coming up next and what the current time is and stuff like that. And we started to call that a HUD, like head-up display.
HUD. Right.
Yeah. So, and still people here in Finland, they are calling those, when they are doing these more advanced bugs, they are calling them HUDs.
Yeah, it seems like it's two things. Like one is like acronyms that seems to stick to the names, and also like a tradition, like where all this kind of came from. The name and the idea kind of seems to stick.
Yeah. Absolutely, because when you think about it, when you are in production and there are 10 people like producing the show in real time, so the language that is being used there to create the show will need to be very like precise. So you don't have time to explain, like if you're a director of a show, you don't have time to explain the other people what they should do. They should come up with that's why all these things, they have a name, so you can quickly call it up and it will happen right there and then. And no need to start a discussion like, what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by lower third?
Yeah.
Where does it go?
Yeah.
No super that CG. Yeah. That's what we come out of with this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I've covered most of the terms that I had in mind.
All right.
Yeah. I had the next topic kind of to talk about as like going back to what we were saying about the tools to actually make and use these broadcast graphics. But now that I'm thinking, I think that will take a whole nother hour or two. Like we could easily go so long on that, and we've already basically done 1 hour here. How about we take that to the next episode? What do you think?
Absolutely, we can do that.
I think we cover pretty good ground.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
Maybe next episode, since we're gonna talk about the software.
Yeah.
When we talk about it, we can show that.
Nice teaser there, by the way.
Yeah, great. Yeah, nice. So make sure everyone come back in a month or so to episode 3. We'll be talking more about hardware and software of how to use these live graphics. Right. So anything else you have in mind, Tuomo?
I do have a lot of things in my mind, but we don't have time to go through those right now.
No. Yeah, same. Me neither. Yeah, well, thank you everyone for coming back and watching. And in the future, we're going to try to get guests on here too from graphics industry, broadcasting industry, AV industry. So, yeah, make sure you tune in. I guess we could have cut it there.
Yes, we could have.
Or we cut it there. It's cut there.